Hello and welcome to Positively United. Today, Tuesday, the 14th of April, 2026. It's the day after our home defeat to Leeds. Lost 2-1 at home last night in a game that was quite clearly the most disappointing of Carrick's reign as interim head coach. And in this video, I want to look at the player ratings. I'll do another video later today on 5 insights from the game, of which I think there are some pretty important ones. But let's have a look at the player ratings because they might actually feed into the 5 insights. Let's start off with the starting 11. And of course, there were some big surprises here. Mazraoui playing at right back. I put on X last night just before the game started. The reason Dalot wasn't playing because he was ill apparently. And then I took that down because I got some contrary feedback, but it is again my understanding that the reason Dalot didn't start the game tonight was because he was ill, or he had been ill, and therefore Mazraoui started because Dalot just wasn't ready for the game. The other change, of course, was seeing Ugarte in midfield instead of Mainu. Mainu had a knock in training, so it was an outright physical injury. And I on X said just before the game started that losing Mainu or Casemiro was my nightmare, really, for this season, or the second half of the season. If you go back and look at my videos in January, late January, early February, I make it absolutely clear. I think not strengthening our midfield in the January transfer window was a huge mistake. I don't know how much that is to do with Ineos, with the Glazers, with Michael Carrick, with Jason Wilcox, with Vivell, who knows? Barada. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I don't have insights, as some people claim they do, into those sorts of things. All I know is that collectively, whoever is responsible individually, let's look at it as a collective, that was really dropping the ball. There were players in January available. They wouldn't have been the long-term midfield solution for United. That was never the point. The point was strengthening the midfield options that we had and that were open to Michael Carrick to use. Ugarte, and I'll come to him in just a moment, he's not good enough. If he was good enough, he'd have started games. But he's not good enough. Mainu out or Casemiro out, Ugarte in, it's a downgrade. There's no other way of looking at it. It's a substantial downgrade. Now, if we'd bought ourselves, or more likely actually taken out on loan another midfielder in the January transfer window, we could have had a much better player to bring in than Ugarte. And I still believe it's one of the worst decisions we've made this season. And I really hope it doesn't come back to bite us. We're always a knock on the ankle, a sprained ankle, a heavy tackle on the knee, a groin injury away from catastrophe in midfield. Because not being able to play Casemiro and Mainu is a catastrophe. And it showed yesterday. And I'll explain why in a little bit. So yeah, those are the two significant shocks before the game. I don't think any of us were shocked to see Šeško play, and I don't think any of us were necessarily shocked to see Mbeumo rested, put on the bench. He's looked tired in recent games. And so Ahmad played wide right, Cunha wide left, or as wide as they ever get, with Fernandes in the middle of our 3 attacking midfielders. So it was altogether an unlikely starting 11. Certainly not one I predicted. I didn't see anybody else predict it either. But let's go through the player ratings. Lamens, I'm going to give just a quick reminder about the way I score. Everybody starts with a 6. And depending on how they play and the contributions they make to the match, they either get bumped up from a 6 or they get cut down from a 6, depending on whether they've contributed positively or negatively to the team performance. Lamens, a 6.5. He made some excellent saves. I don't really see what he could have done about the goals. They weren't savable in my opinion. And I thought he was his usual best. Not a 7, because I kind of don't think, apart from one player, anybody deserved a 7 for the overall team performance yesterday. So he gets a 6.5. But I thought about as solid as usual. I didn't see anything particularly wrong with what he did. Mazraoui, I've given a 5, and that might be generous. I'm guessing he was probably called into the team late. He hasn't played very much recently. And I think Mazraoui's been found out, if I'm going to be brutal about it. I think last season, quite a few of us, myself included, thought we'd unearthed a bit of a gem. But maybe now we're finding out why he was released or let go by his previous team. He's not quite good enough. He certainly wasn't good enough last night. He wasn't particularly solid defensively, and he offered absolutely zero going forward. I'm going to do a video quite soon about what we need to buy in the summer, and I keep coming back to this point. Everybody seems to be absolutely obsessed with us buying a left back. It's right back where we have the real problems. Neither Mazraoui nor Dalot are good enough. And we've got no prospect of somebody coming in to improve that position. On the left, it's different. Now, Shaw is coming to the end of his career, certainly the end of his career at Manchester United. But we have got Dorgu to come into the left-back position. And we've got Harry Amas who can come into the left-back position. It seems to me it's the right-back position where we are seriously underpowered and where we need to make a purchase this summer. But more about in a future video. But Mazraoui just wasn't good enough. A 5, and I think that's, on reflection as I'm talking about it, I think I've been a bit too generous there. But I'm going to leave it at a 5. I'm going to skip Martinez and come to him last. Yoro, it's a 4. I'm sorry. I genuinely believe Yoro is a star of the future. But something has happened to Yoro. When he first came back in the team, we remember against West Ham and Everton, he had terribly nervous starts to his games. Against West Ham, it was really, really shaky. Against Everton, it was pretty bad too. And on both occasions, our back four suffered as a consequence. Now, last night, his nervous start was magnified many times over by the fact that there was no Harry Maguire in that back four. And boy, did we miss Harry Maguire last night. There are people online, we know who they are, who say that it's not right that Harry Maguire's been offered a new contract at Manchester United, that we should have moved him on. A bit of me thinks it's only said for clicks, that it's only said to be provocative. But it's a horror if these people seriously think that that's true, that Maguire doesn't deserve another contract. It's not out of generosity. It's not out of feeling sorry for him. It's because he is one of our very best defenders. And when he's not there, we miss him. And we really missed him yesterday. There was no organisation in that back four. None at all. And it looked panicky and out of sorts and nervous and jittery from the absolute starting whistle. As soon as the whistle went in that game, it looked nervous. And Leeds destroyed our back four in the first 5 minutes of the game. It should have been 2-0 up. And it's not all Yoro's fault, obviously. Although he could have been a lot more physical. And this is a big problem with Yoro, I think. There's a lack of physicality there. He could have been a lot more physical, certainly with the first goal. But I'm sorry. Another terrible nervous start by him. I thought he'd got over that, but it was back there yesterday in spades. It's a 4 because it really seriously affected our back four. And I think both goals were in some way or other down to Yoro or the nervousness that was imparted by him onto the back four. Sure, I'm going to get, so it's a 4 for Yoro. Sure, 6.5. I can hear the howls of derision. He was good. He was by far our best defender. Unlike Mazraoui, he did offer something when he went forward too. But he was a damn good defender yesterday. A little bit better than average. He deserves a 6.5. And I'm absolutely crystal clear about this. Shaw is coming to the end of his United career. But he's certainly not the passenger that people think of it he is as a defender. He doesn't offer much going forward, which is why I think ultimately Jorge will take over next season. But yesterday, thank God we had Shaw, because at least he was one of our defenders that we could rely on. Unlike Martinez. Now, I know everyone will want to talk about the block that stopped an almost certain third goal. Yeah, it's a great block. But Martinez is a seasoned professional. He's a World Cup winner. And he gets himself sent off for that adolescent, ridiculous, foolish foul. The tug on hair. The hair pull that resulted in him being sent off. Now, I've heard people say today that the hair pull on Calvert-Lewin was a minor thing, a small thing, maybe not even intentional, didn't deserve a sending off, that we were hard done by. Oh, grow up. Look at Martinez's face. Look at the way that he looked when the referee was going down to the screen. He knew what he'd done. Totally, utterly irresponsible. Inexcusable from a player of his stature and experience. Absolutely torpedoed any chance we had, realistic chance we had, of getting anything out of that game. Because we could have got a 2-2 draw out of that game yesterday, because we were by far the best team in the second half. But it's difficult at all times playing with 10 men. And the reason we were playing with 10 men was because of Martinez's either stupidity or complete and utter irresponsibility. Sorry, I've no sympathy for him. I've heard Michael Carrick's excuses at the end of the game saying it's one of the worst decisions he's ever seen. Sorry, Michael, totally disagree. I think you're looking for excuses. And maybe it's a kind of like throwback to the Ferguson era, where Ferguson would make excuses for players in front of the cameras and then ball them out behind the scenes. Sort of thing that, managers in the past are famous for it, aren't they? Of just defending their players to the hilt. There's something to be said for it in some ways. But I'm not buying it for the game yesterday. Martinez deserved to get sent off and he was stupid. So it's a 3 for Martinez from me. Doesn't matter about the block. Doesn't matter about the other stuff he did. He let the side down and himself down yesterday. Moving into midfield, Casemiro, a 6. His headed goal was superb. Beautifully laid on a plate for him by Fernandes, but still an excellent header. And he's become the heading sort of king of the Premier League in the second half of the season, hasn't he? And we will miss that. Of course we will. The rest of his game, I think it might be tempting for some people to see it as a little bit below average, but I think you've got to make allowances for Casemiro yesterday in that he wasn't playing alongside Mainu, who I'll have a word to say about in just a moment. So I think it was really tough for Casemiro yesterday. He was often left exposed in the midfield. And that's when he suffers, of course, because there's now his lack of pace and stamina. He suffers if he's exposed alone in midfield, and yesterday it happened all the time. It doesn't happen when Mainu is alongside him. But so I'm going to leave him a 6 because I think without the goal he'd probably be a 5.5, but with the goal it's a 6. Ugarte. Well, based on the first 15, 20 minutes, I've given Martinez a 3 when Martinez actually did some good stuff. Would I have given Ugarte a 2? Seems very low. He was atrocious in the first 15 minutes, 20 minutes. There are some people trying to that he wasn't that bad yesterday. Listen to the crowd reaction to him after 10 minutes. United fans don't tend to turn against their own players, but there were gasps of... Well, people ran out of patience with him after 10 minutes, 15 minutes, because he kept giving the ball away. He's not good enough for Manchester United. He never has been. He definitely improved as the game went on. I think he started simplifying his game. He started being a bit more conservative, small c conservative with his play, which meant he made fewer mistakes, but it meant that we kind of like had no opportunity of being creative in the midfield. It's why Bruno Fernandes, who I'll come to in a bit, he ended up coming really deep in the second half. I'm sure you all noticed that, because that was the only way we were going to get any creativity in the centre of midfield. But it's a 5 for Ugarte because it wasn't a disaster because it got better as the game went on, but it certainly wasn't a 6. It wasn't average. It was below average. And this is why not strengthening the midfield in January has proved to be such a mistake. It was a mistake then. It's definitely a mistake now. Let's talk about Mainu. He didn't play yesterday, so why are we talking about him? Some people either don't get what Mainu gives the team or they pretend not to. I'm not too sure. I think it's probably a bit of both. But you saw yesterday, in his absence, what Mainu does. It's interesting. You appreciate Mainu when he's not there, sometimes more than when he's there. Because when he's there, his positive attributes are kind of like you can overlook them, because this is what they are. He's always ready to receive the ball, and when he receives the ball, he doesn't panic, and he's always got time, more time than the players around him usually, to make the right, the sensible, the proper pass. He reminds me a little bit of Scholes, not in terms of his long-range passing ability, but Scholes kind of always knew before he'd got the ball where he was going to pass it to, and I feel Mainu's got the same really positive attribute. We really missed him yesterday. I hope you noticed that. Particularly in the first half and particularly in the first 20, 25 minutes, where our defence was just ran ragged. That wouldn't have happened if Mainu had been playing. And it's one of Mainu's biggest strengths, if not his biggest strength. And when he's not there, we miss it. For those people who think that Mainu is in some way bigged up too much or isn't the player that people think he is, compare and contrast a Mainu game under Carrick with the game we saw last night, and you can see why Mainu is so vital. Our attacking midfielders. I'm going to give Diallo a 6. I toyed with 5.5, but actually in the first half of the first half, he actually was quite lively and I think did quite a lot of good stuff. But as United sort of got overwhelmed and the weight of the 2-0 started to press on him, he started to get frozen out of the game or didn't perform or whatever. But I feel bad about giving him anything less than a 6 because I genuinely think in the first 20-odd minutes, he actually offered quite a bit. Cunha, I'm going to give a 6 as well. He didn't offer as much as he has been doing in recent games, but I think he's been absolutely excellent in recent games. So to me, it was a 6 yesterday. Average, certainly not worse than average, but he didn't do anything to bump him up from a 6. Fernandes, I'm going to wait until I show the second half lineup before I talk about Fernandes. Šeško up front. It's a 4. And I feel bad about that, but you can only score on what you see. We can't pretend that there is a Jekyll and Hyde thing about Šeško, and it's this. When he comes on as a sub, he's an absolutely excellent impact substitute. When he starts a game, he's totally anonymous. I think it's really inexplicable. It's really, really hard to understand the difference. Is it because when he comes on as a sub, United are already chasing a game and are playing at a higher tempo? and are more likely to directly get the ball to him in dangerous areas? Is it that when he starts the game, he's suffering from a trait which has become now pretty obvious, which is that we start games really, really slow and sluggishly and with a lack of purpose and tempo, and that affects him? That might be the case. Problem with that approach is, well, two things can be right at the same time, so that might be part of it. But I don't think we can be that kind on him. I think we have to accept that he must be responsible too. There were a few times in the first half and in the second half actually where he received the ball. He did absolutely nothing with it. The ball bounced off him. He couldn't control it. He didn't make the right pass. I'm sorry. I just have to remember forwards that have played for United, like Mark Hughes, for example, where if you pass the ball to them, the ball was like Velcro. It just stuck with them. Like Hughes, back to goal, traps the ball with his thigh, brings it down, holds onto it for an eternity with a player behind him, a defender, trying to rip his back off. But he still holds onto the ball and then lays it off to a Cantona or a McClare or a Beckham or a Giggs. Šeško has none of those attributes as far as I can tell, but this is the worrying thing. None of our forwards in recent times have had those attributes. So is it that they themselves don't have the attributes, or is it the team around them are not capable of bringing those attributes out of them? I don't know. I haven't got the answers to that. I'm not close enough to the situation. I hope Carrick and I hope the team behind him are thinking about it and are trying to get the answer. Because at the moment, we've got to be honest about this. Šeško as a starter looks like a flop. Sorry to say it, but he does. 4 out of 10 for me. Let's have a look at the lineup as we ended the game, and I think this is how we ended the game. Obviously, by this stage, Martinez had foolishly got himself sent off. And Dalot would come on for Mazraoui. I think during the second half, particularly as we pressed forward for the second goal after we'd scored the first, we played essentially, I think, with a back three of Shaw, Yoro and Dalot, with Casemiro falling into the back when necessary. Fernandes came back from his number 10 position to come more and more deeply into midfield as the game went on. I mean, I hate the phrase, I really do, but he did appear to be playing as a quarterback style player at one stage where he was genuinely behind the centre circle in our own half and was pinging balls right and left, looking to spark things off. Mbeumo would come on instead of Ahmad. Dalot, by the way, 6 for me. Didn't do anything wrong. Didn't do anything brilliant. But based on my way of scoring, that's average. Mbeumo, a 6.5. He definitely looked more purposeful than Ahmad had done by the time Ahmad was taken off. Yeah, I think let's hope the rest has done Mbeumo a bit of good, because I thought he looked good when he came on. But yeah, let's talk about Fernandes. Wasn't his best game yesterday, but it wasn't anybody's best game yesterday. But of all of our players yesterday, you just yet again knew that if anything was going to happen, it was going to happen from Fernandes. The cross for Casemiro's headed goal was absolutely superb. And there were so many crosses, so many passes yesterday that were the only ways in which we were going to penetrate Leeds and get back into the game. 7 out of 10. And my man of the match. It's becoming very boring, isn't it? Fernandes being man of the match. I appreciate some people might have chosen Shaw. I don't quite understand why some people chose Casemiro. But to me, it's Fernandes, because I like the fact he got booked, by the way. Usually I think that was a lack of control. But I like the fact that he got into the face of a referee. I don't think it was a good day for a referee. I fully agree with the sending off of Martinez. I fully appreciate, by the way, about the sending off of Martinez. That, of course, would not happen in a pre-VAR world. It only happens in a VAR world. In a non-VAR world, that doesn't even get seen by the referee. And yeah, VAR is a absolute pile of dung and should be got rid of. Of course it is. But it's there now. And if we have people, with clipboards and spreadsheets sat in the stuffy office in Stockley Park, pleasuring themselves into a sock whilst they try and spot tiny infringements on the pitch, this is going to happen. But unfortunately, it wasn't a tiny infringement. It was a pretty obvious one, and it was one that deserved Martinez to get sent off. But, I don't want to tread old ground on that. Fernandes and me, man of the match. So there you go. Those are my player ratings for the game against Leeds. A lot of subpar performances yesterday. And the game against Chelsea now takes on a surprising significance. How different it would have been, even if we'd got the draw yesterday, I think. But if we'd got the win, as we ought to have done, that Chelsea game could have been we could have burnt it off. Not that we would have wanted to or would have planned to. But if you come out of a Chelsea game losing 1-0 or 2-0, kind of like wouldn't matter almost. Now, losing at Chelsea feels like it could be quite bad. The last thing I'd want to see happen this season is Liverpool take over the third spot. Don't know about you, I don't want to see that happen. So I think we need to get at least a draw out of the game at Stamford Bridge this weekend. But that's going to be tough because I would imagine that our centre-back partnership at the weekend is going to be Yoro and Aiden Heaven. Unless, of course, Carrick decides to move Shaw into the centre-back position. Because, of course, Martinez is going to be now suspended for 3 games. Yeah, he was that irresponsible. And it would... can you imagine the FA turning down the chance of giving Maguire an extended ban when they've got the chance to do so? I mean, it'd be nice if they don't, but are they going to miss that opportunity against United? Kind of doubt it. So, yeah, it's going to be a really, really tough game, I think, against Chelsea. And my God, our team have got to be a lot more awake and a lot more plugged in and a lot more... They've got to want it more than they did yesterday. And why they didn't want it yesterday is surprising. It has dawned on me in the player ratings that I do, I don't give a score to the manager. Perhaps I should start doing so, and I'm going to start doing it today. It's a 4 for Carrick. I thought by far his worst performance as caretaker coach. I was baffled by why it took him so long to bring on substitutes. I was expecting substitutes at half time. He didn't bring the substitutes on until we'd gone down to 10 men. And then he brought on Dalot and Mbumo, 2 substitutes, both down the right-hand side. Why did he leave Shesko on? Why didn't he change the formation? Why didn't he go for broke? Would any of us have minded if we'd lost 3-0 rather than 2-0 or 3-1 rather than 2-1? I've got my 3 tests for Carrick. Do we qualify for Europe? Do we play the United way? And can he keep that coaching team together? Well, we're going to qualify for Europe. I'll be disappointed if we don't finish third, but we're going to qualify for Europe. Are we playing the United way? No. He's failing the second test at the moment. I'm really sorry to say that, but he is. Against Chelsea, he kind of needs to show what he's about. I hope he does. Really hope he does. Okay, that's all for now. Those are my player ratings for the game against Leeds. Later today, I'll be producing a 5 insights analysis of the game. But as always, until then, remain positively United.